The Ushiramiya Family Conference was held once every year, on the first weekend of October. If a normal family were to hold a so-called family conference, you'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. However, part of the family's great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children, and no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. So this meeting literally was a conference. Hell world, capitalism family, hell world, generational trauma. Okay. How much of the fortune was invested? What sort of business was conducted? How much profit was earned? As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid? Or possibly, how much more would be borrowed for future business ventures? What lessons had they learned, and what could they learn from their mistakes? It seemed that topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like laying on a bed of nails. Apparently, it used to be a very serious family meeting, where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices, and some people even got slapped despite their age. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful, so while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for us grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. The absence of the man who was the source of all this trouble, regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste much more delicious. The phrase, "while the demon is not around, everyone can relax," comes to mind. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. The man sitting to my father's left is his older brother and Jessica's father, Uncle Kraus. This name sure is easy to read. Kraus. And now that we've gotten used to the string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed, so Kraus doesn't actually seem that bad. It even starts to sound kinda cool. Just like with Aunt Natsuki, I didn't have many memories of speaking with Uncle Kraus. He had never been one to chat to children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like Aunt Natsuki. This is a Knives Out prequel. So the thing is that I can say is that, like, there's a lot of Agatha Christie and Then There Were None influence here, which is also the same thing that Knives Out is extremely heavily influenced by. So, or we can say that Knives Out is a Higurashi clone. I mean, an Umineko clone, which is way funnier to say. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. If what he says is true, Uncle Kraus used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling, and he was despised by all the other siblings. Though, despite that, those siblings all seemed to be chatting happily together. Oh well, even if their relationship was bad when they were children, sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, their relationships change. That's probably what this was. Oh, all the Knives Out similarities? So true. After all, they all had children of about the same age. By sharing the same family environment, they probably profited by exchanging opinions. Because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I would be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father on her left, purposefully faced right while firing off a rapid series of comments, not giving him any chance to get a word in. Moving on, let's look at the end opposite from Kraus and the others. In the very last seat at the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kyrie-san. This was my first time meeting him. I had only just been introduced to him, but it seems like he's grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. Oh, it's the "and then there were none" ones? Yeah, no, there's a bunch. I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Nijima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. He had known grandfather since the very beginning, when the mansion was first constructed on this island, and had built up a relationship over several decades. I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through Grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems that he was actually Grandfather's chess partner. I see. That kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather, what with his love of all things Western. Nanjo's probably the only person who could enter Rokkenjima despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kyrie and the other women who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of our short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ushiramiya family attend the family conference was a little odd. Alright, let's check the tips. I think we have the last two. Yeah, there we go. Attending physician Nanjo. Kinzo's attending physician and longtime friend. He once ran a hospital on Nijima, but he turned it over to his son and now enjoys his old age in peace. Now that Kinzo's constant suspicion had reached extraordinary heights, Nanjo was one of the very few people he trusts. Thanks to Nanjo's big-hearted nature, he has been able to continue his friendship with Kinzo despite the latter's tendency to fly into a rage at the slightest provocation. Ushiramiya Kraus, Kinzo's first child. As the oldest of the four siblings, he leads the family conference. However, the other siblings think he is trying to get all the inheritance for himself, and this further strains the tensions between them. He is a real estate investor and has put a lot of money into the development of a resort. However, his results have been harshly criticized. It made me think that Grandfather's condition might have worsened so much it'd be a major topic of discussion at today's conference. After all, George said something like that just a second ago. Something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that Grandfather didn't have long to live. It's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich Grandfather is. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with a fair share of our parents' stomach acid, and it'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance they'll be talking about stuff like that at the family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with us kids. Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. The person who should be sitting in that incipient's chair is Ushiramiya Kinzo. It really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got this perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were written Kinzo, but he let us call him Goldsmith or something. Kinzo kind of literally means goldsmith, which is what I'd totally freak out. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temper. I'm one of his grandchildren, not a son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself, but our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. That earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Kraus about who should convince Grandfather to come down seemed pretty darn funny once you know their background. There's a lot to read into there on an allegorical level. Yeah, very much so. You can't really tell Grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event back before the Showa era, which is 1926 to 1989. Until the Meiji and Taisho eras, the Ushiramiya family was great and prosperous. So, until 1912. Thank you. Or I guess until 1868. So they're like old money. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to just double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, Grandfather was a member of a branch family and had pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down the list of people who could inherit the headship, but he hardly had any contact with the glamorous main family. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in the year Taisho 12, 1923, the mansion owned by the Ushiramiya family in Odawara was flattened. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ushiromiya family lost most of its wealth and family members in an instant. So, once they started trying to figure out who the successor to the Ushiromiya family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except Kinzo and his branch family. In Kinzo's later reminiscences, he referred to this as good fortune so great that it overturned fate. With that, grandfather's boring everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ushiromiya family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he had been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently, those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this is when Grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all of the family's remaining wealth, as well as everything from the hair on his head to his toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. Once he built up a gigantic war chest, he immediately invested in businesses. It was like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighboring bike, and then another one. Just like some crazy street performance. That's what his investing was like. I bet everyone thought Grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. However, after several miracles and turns of good luck, with coincidences piling up and every chance taken advantage of, he was suddenly in control of powerful connections with the occupying forces. At that time, MacArthur and the GHQ were the ultimate authority in Japan. Yep. Yeah, we're going there. Grandfather, in a twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. Ryukishi leaning into the microphone. It was the West. The West. By this point, it's probably safe to say that this information, that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some seriously deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. Alright, get some rest, games. I'm probably only going to go for like another 30 minutes, so the VOD you shouldn't have too much to catch up on. Get some rest. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning, when he started investing his money. The history books make it sound like all of Japan made a large profit off of the emergency demands during the Korean War, me nodding, this is something I totally knew about. But that isn't actually true. Only a very limited number of the super rich played the money game and made an easy profit. Most of the citizens remained poor. In other words, Grandfather was a member of this extremely lucky group of winners. I'm pretty sure this all happened during the year Showa 25, 1950, or so. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisho 13, 1924, so that means Grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ushiromiya family in only about 20 years to a level even higher than it had been ever before. With that, you'd think he'd revive the main family in Odawara, but for some reason he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Izu archipelago. Buying an entire island is not something you can ordinarily do today. However, Grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as a business property, then tossed that project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. Ryukishi's like, you think I'm gonna have somebody own an island and not tell you how they did it? After the war, there were prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of the GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of that day offered this land to him practically for free. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Anyway, it seems under-the-table bribes did their work well. Wasn't the earthquake notable for greatly bolstering the conservative movement in Japan at the time? That might be thematically relevant, it just might be. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune and his own island. Of course, it probably wasn't all luck. He was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He was able to use this to his advantage and sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. This mansion, in fact. Grandfather, with his love of the Western style, made this once uninhabited island a canvas upon which he could realize his dreams to his heart's content. He now had the Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and a beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. And he had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for any boy. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in the extremely stable iron and steel industry, and was able to live an easy and comfortable life just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. That kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that is how they're portrayed after the fact. But Grandfather denies all of that, repeatedly saying that he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. Anyway, even a lord like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up alone on an island, where all his dreams are made real. Everyone knows that he's had a Western obsession from the start, but none of our parents really know where his bizarre black magic hobby came from. Did his love of black magic begin way back when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous stretch of good luck when reviving his family cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? At some point, Grandfather began to make the research of black magic his life's work. He filled his study up with suspicious books, chemicals, and magical items as he became increasingly bizarre. From what I've heard, those around him warmly watched over him, figuring that someone who had achieved success in his life had a right to do as he pleased. But there's no way that's true. We heard this song before when we looked at Beatrice's painting for the first time. They were probably just creeped out, thinking, that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. Anyway, that agitated period was an age of big gambles with both opportunities and risks. They, reasonable people, hate to see a wizard maxing king winning. Let's say Grandfather was born in this time period. He would have had no opportunities and would have probably advanced like a chess piece from mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming anything more than an average salary man. If that happened, he'd probably have sat somewhere, happily talking behind his boss's back. No, not in a fancy dining hall like this. More like at a table in some bar. Then again, I'll bet this family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that were the case. Thanks, Battler. Okay, that's enough about the old geezer. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch. I'm already convinced by this sashimi salad appetizer. Goda-san's an excellent chef. Plus, these fish were caught in the adjacent seas, weren't they? They're totally different from the sashimi you get at a supermarket. Hey, quit it, Battler. Your upbringing will be exposed. They hate casting spells. Yeah, Zeros, you're 1000% right. Everyone let out a big laugh. Damn it, you say that even though you love those cheap pubs. I've eaten at many unusual places because of work, but this stands right up there with the best of them. I'd be willing to bet Goda-san used to be pretty well known in those circles. Well, I don't know the details, but stuff got complicated at the long-standing hotel he used to work at. What with them opening a new establishment with the same name and breaking into factions or whatever it was. In the middle of all of that, he was apparently forced to retire. At that time, Mom just happened to be sending out job offers for a servant. As Goder removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing his smile. The world is a difficult place. However, thanks to the madam, I was given a chance to display my skills as a chef once again, this time for the Ushiramiya family. Although I enjoy experiencing the smiles of a larger number of people, I also find it quite entertaining to perform more delicate work that can please the limited number of those who have employed me. All this is thanks to the opportunity given to me by the madam. He's such a sycophant. He's insufferable. He's the only, servant in this story that makes me mad. Goda-san respectfully bowed his head towards Aunt Natsui. I'm sorry. Natsui headache moding right into frame is so funny. She's like, shut the fuck up. And that's because you were the most talented of the applicants. The decision was purely objective, not based on personal feelings, so there is no need to thank me. Dang, why does Aunt Natsui always have to sound so indifferent? If only she spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. Because she's tired, Battler. She's so tired. Shanan-chan and Kumasawa-san entered from the hallway with a serving cart. Please excuse us. Now then, let us move on to today's dessert. Goda-san and the others laid the beautifully adorned dessert out in front of all of us. I guess it's true when they say you have another stomach for dessert. I thought I'd already filled up on delicious food, but as soon as I laid eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling more. I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. A white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce, and elegant rose petals adorned the dish. Normally during a high-class meal like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to extol the virtues of this particular meal before eating. However, Maria was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited by this beautiful and delicious-looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed before her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but George responded by saying, No, it's okay. This part's sour. Battler, this one's no good. Ugh. Maria exclaimed as she sampled the 2 colored sauces. What? Some are good and some bad? Okay, I'll give it a go. Apparently one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Oh, one of the sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd have suspected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness would be red. I decided to ask Shanan, who was putting away the serving cart behind us. Shanan-chan, what kind of sauce is this sour stuff? Shanan-chan hesitated. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she doesn't really know. Still, even considering that, she seemed pretty stressed. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or did they use some ingredient that we'd be better off not knowing about? While Aunt Natsui made a gesture that seemed to indicate an oncoming headache, Kumasawa-san, who was setting the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle. What do you think we made it out of? It'll shock you. Huh? I don't have a clue. Wait a second, Kumasawa-bachan, that laugh's pretty creepy. So what is it? Don't tell anyone, okay? Listen very carefully. Kumasawa-san leaned across from the other side of the table. I leaned forward myself when she asked. Their interest caught. Jessica, George Aniki, and of course Maria also put their ears closer. Ugh. What? Quickly! You see, the sour part is made from juice squeezed from a mackerel. What? Mackerel? Such a goofy, silly old lady, isn't it? That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepted it, nodding sagely. I love you, Maria. She's like, ah yes, of course. Ooh, mackerels are sour. This is what comes out when you squeeze them. live Natsui reaction. For other streams, we're gonna need that in the corner. Just a live Natsui reaction. When Maria started clamoring that mackerel were sour, the adults were unable to contain their laughter. Only Aunt Rosa, her face red, whispered to Maria that mackerel is sour only once prepared as shimasaba? Shimesaba. So true. Now I totally remember. Kumasawa-san was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember her tricking me too in all sorts of ways when I was young. Natsui, does Natsui have any friends? She lives on this fucking island with Kraus, her piece of shit husband, her shitty father-in-law, and like the servants. It's rough. The most lethal has got to be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They're kikurage mushrooms. She told me they were penguin meat, and I went all around school like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I? Kumasawa Bachan, you sure haven't changed. You know Maria's gonna believe it now, right? It's just a joke. Now Goda-san's going to tell us what the sauce really is, won't he? Goda looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason, but after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us. Well then, allow me to introduce our dessert. After seeing how much you all enjoyed the rose garden earlier today, I finished this panna cotta in a rose garden style. The rose petals scattered across were selected just now from that very rose garden. The sauce is a combination of 2 reds, strawberry and rose hips. Please enjoy this mixture of the strawberry sweetness and the rose hip sourness. Furthermore, the rose petals are merely decorative, so please avoid them while you eat. With that said, please enjoy. It is remarkable how unlikable Goda is. Whoa, man, I almost want to applaud before eating. Just like with medicine, reading the detailed description first seems to make it work a whole lot better. As Goda-san elaborated on the details of this dessert, it started to feel even more appetizing. Well, thank you for the hydrate, June. And the posture check. Seriously, should you call him subtle or just talented? The dessert was probably planned from the beginning, but taking the hint when we all stopped in front of the rose garden earlier today, he displayed an incredible and timely awareness by just adding a few rose petals from that garden. This combination of sweet and sour was also exquisite. If it was just sweet, you'd get used to it and bored halfway through. But if you reached the sour sauce at that point, you'd get a really vivid taste. And then, once you returned to the sweet sauce, all of the sourness in your mouth would be replaced with an enjoyable sweetness. Balor is so rich. I'm sure everyone else felt the same way. Every time Goda-san passed by one of our seats, someone praised the taste and his presentation. How is it, madam? Splendid, as always. It is worthy of entertaining our guests. I am most grateful for your words. Madam, did you know? I have heard that rose hips have the ability to cure headaches. I thought that you in particular would appreciate it, so I had it specially prepared. Is that so? Thank you. See? Didn't I tell you, Natsume-san? Rosehip is great for headaches. So it seems. I do hope it actually helps. She's so great. Ah! Goda-san, I love ya! Hey, later on, why don't you tell me how they're treating ya? Or if you can't, just let me know what sort of salary you'd like. I can't handle him. Having your talent confined in a small island is sacrilege to humanity's cooking culture. What'd you think about working your craft for my company and delighting all our customers? Hideyoshi-san, are you trying to steal away our Goda? No, that won't do at all. We'd better start treating Goda better or he'll get snatched up. Yes, you really should. If you don't, someone's gonna grab him and you'll be stuck with 3 meals of Kumasawa-style mackerel cooking a day, won't you? That's harsh. It seems someone's holding a grudge against me. Everyone let out a huge laugh. According to Jessica, Kumasawa-san's mackerel jokes were a running gag that our parents had long since gotten used to. Kumasawa-san often claimed that mackerels had precious nutritional value, which could slow aging, make people smarter, and more. Supposedly, while it couldn't stop the outward signs of aging, it helped prevent aging on the inside. Since she was still spirited enough to tell these kinds of jokes at her age, there must be something to that theory. In that case, if you'll excuse me, prepare yourself for tonight's dinner. I'll be cooking plenty of mackerel dishes for you all, so you'd better look forward to it. We sure will. Can't wait to get all puckered up from tonight's Shimisawa. That sounds wonderful. I wonder if they'll be serving any good Japanese sake. Oh, we certainly will. Haven't you heard of Rakanjima's famous mackerel shochu? Damn, she's really got these mackerel bits going. Kumasawa-san, together with Shannon-chan, bowed and pushed the serving cart away. It was pretty funny to watch Goda-san, who looked like his show had been totally stolen, explain in a serious voice that we would be having calf steak for dinner. Kumasawa-san, thanks for doing that back there. As she pushed the serving cart, Shannon bowed her head very deeply. I haven't done anything that requires thanks. Kumasawa may have played dumb, but she had obviously understood and saved Shannon in the nick of time. Back when Battler had asked about dessert, Shannon had unfortunately hesitated. There may have been several ways to dodge the question, but all of them would have required some quick wits. Shannon, who hesitated when hard-pressed for a response, was always suffering because of this small weakness. If only Shannon had a bit of the craftiness needed to cleverly shake off a mistake, like Goda, her life would have been a bit easier. The fact that she could perform other tasks flawlessly made this weakness even more unfortunate. However, there were some who understood Shannon's honest nature, her inability to gloss over a mistake and draw attention away from it. That was why Kumasawa had smoothly come to her rescue. I just heard from Genji-san that there will be a change in the afternoon shifts. I believe you were given a break until this evening. I'm jealous. Huh? Oh, sorry, I haven't checked the shift chart yet. Yes. I was thinking I might start cooking some mackerel in the oven. If you don't mind, I would be happy if you would help me out a bit before your break. Yes. I would be delighted to help. To Shannon, Kumasawa was like a mother among the servants. So that's normal relationship. I mean, it's sweet, but also, you know. She was not serious about the mackerel. She's still doing mackerel bits. No Japanese alcohol will be served here, only the finest European wines. What about their actual mothers? So true. Where are these kids' parents? So true. The dining hall needed to be cleaned up, so we were chased out. Instead, tea was being served in the parlor. Apparently, they'd prepared the black tea that Aunt Rosa had bought for Aunt Natsui. Maria said that she also wanted to have some black tea, but my old bastard said she couldn't and told us children to go play outside. Battler-kun, why don't we all go for a walk outside? Go ahead and take a look at the roses or something, but keep a close eye on the weather. The sky's still clear, but the weather report kept talking about rain. Ugh, I want to go to the beach. The beach! Oh, that sounds wonderful. Playing on a sandy beach isn't something you get to do often, is it? Good point. Okay, let's all go to the beach then. Ooh, let's go, let's go! Maria, be careful not to get your clothes wet. Or your shoes. Ugh, won't get wet. That obedience is so cute. Battler-kun, make sure you keep an eye out for Maria-chan, okay? Sure, leave it to me. Hey, you're pretty obedient and cute yourself listening to Kyrie like that. Why don't you also listen to me obediently for a change? Hell no. Let's go, everyone, come on! Battler! Battler's like, absolutely fucking not. I only listen to my stepmother. Who I do not acknowledge as being so. Because she's like, cool. The children flew out of the parlor. They were replaced by Genji, who pushed a serving cart in and prepared to serve the tea. The parlor was filled with a sublime aroma which delighted everyone while they waited to sate their thirst. Rudolph's family certainly seems close. It's a wonderful thing. Quit it. We're no match for your family, Aniki. That's true. You've raised Jessica-chan to be so adorable. I imagine that's yet another fruit of your talents at education and training, Natsui-ne-san. God. As soon as Ava, like, gets... Ava's like, anyway, fuck you, Natsui. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, fuck you, Natsui. Thank you. Natsui answered coldly. The conversation broke off then, and the parlor fell silent. Maybe Hideyoshi couldn't bear the silence, because he broke it himself with an exaggerated gesture. Still, they sure do grow fast. I thought they'd be kids forever, but they start getting huge all of a sudden, and then they're like adults like us. Battler-kun looks like a completely different person now. His body has grown much bigger, but he's still just a kid. Though you could say the same about my husband. I wonder where the border between child and adult is. I still don't feel as though I've grown up. Isn't that pitiful? That's not something the mother of a child should say. Cross, we're trying to have like a conversation here, man. That's right. We're not children anymore. We're all adults now. So I wish we could talk together on an intellectual level rather than an emotional one. Holy shit, Ava. Look at these pieces of shit. This is the two oldest siblings. This is the two. It goes Kraus, Ava, Rudolph, and then Rosa in terms of age. Look at them. God, they suck. I mean, like, Ava's hot while she sucks, but, like, Kraus is just awful. When Ava smiled with sharp sarcasm, everyone seemed to get more tense. It felt as though that pleasant tea aroma had been tossed out the window. Since long ago, we've always endeavored to engage in intellectual conversations. It seems your sarcasm occasionally misses its mark, just as it always has. Oh my god, the two of them? The two of them turning on each other? Let's go? Oh, what is it you've always endeavored to do? My. I wish I could wrap those words up and send them to this room a few decades ago. Right, Rosa? Rosa's like, listen, I don't know if I... Rosa gave a vague smile. She knew that whether she agreed or disagreed, she'd earn the displeasure of one of her siblings. It was a bit of worldly wisdom that had been essential for someone growing up as the youngest sibling. Quit it, Aniki. We'd better get started on our main topic while the brats aren't around. Let us make that our intellectual discussion. As Rudolph glanced over the faces of all present, some let out a slight sigh, and some let a small look of resignation cross their face. They were approaching their unavoidable, true agenda. Last year, his life expectancy was estimated at about 3 months, which I guess means he's got negative 9 months left now. Should we take that to mean it might suddenly happen at any time? The family hat is still alive and well. The fact that you'd bring up such an inappropriate topic under the light of day makes me doubt your sanity, Rudolph-san. Still, Natsui-san, this is the sort of thing you can't put off until after something's happened. He's still healthy now, which makes this the perfect time to talk about this, while we've still got time to plan. It's just a bit of financial etiquette, you might say. It seems Father is the focus of everyone's concern. Dr. Nanjo, could we hear the details from you? That appears to be what everyone else is waiting for, after all. Nanjo, who had been standing by the window and staring out at the rose garden, let out a single cough when he realized that he was being called. I did not know Nanjo was in the room. That's hilarious. Dr. Nanjo, how is Father's condition? Well, to begin, allow me to start with a revision, since my estimate last year had that he had only 3 months left was not borne out. No need to explain. You're saying that measuring remaining life is only a prediction, not a promise, right? That is correct. Because of that, while I will accept everyone's repeated questions, I can by no means confirm when he will pass away. A human's life is supported by their body and their mind. If the body is weak, the situation becomes more dangerous, but if the mind is strong enough to compensate for that weakness, the effects of one's condition can sometimes remain in a subdued state. He's simply too wizard-pilled to die. So you're saying that even if his body is weak, his mind is still firm and spirited. Kyrie, sorry, but please stay quiet for a bit. I'm sorry. That is correct. Kinzo-san's body is being overwhelmed by the demon of ill health. This will hold especially true as long as he continues to partake of such strong alcohol. So, he's in a crisis now because he drinks, and maybe he's lived this long because he drinks. There's Dad for you, the heavy drinker. Well then, Doctor, I know you can't give anything more than a prediction, but what do you think about Father's chances of living until this day next year? That's quite a rude question to ask about the family head. Natsui jumped on Eva, not even bothering to hide her astonished expression. She do kind of be pogging. Eva's like, you're too late, Natsui. I have drawn myself as the Giga Chad and you as the Soy Jack. Look at it! Look at it, it's right there! Kaiba face, so true. Eva stared back daringly, but Hideyoshi realized what was going on and tried to smooth things over with a forced smile. Natsui-san, forgive her. Eva, choose your words a bit more carefully, okay? I'm sorry. I was just so concerned about Father's condition. Okay, it is... Oh, she's a vile woman, but, like, she's kind of a swagaholic. Like, I'm sorry. Is that so? I hadn't realized. Dr. Nanjo, please tell us. For the sake of the beautiful love of a daughter worried about her father's lifespan. My God, Kraus! Kraus laughed sarcastically, and Eva, smiling sweetly, returned an identical chuckle. You asked whether he will still be healthy next year, but as a doctor it is very hard to say, because while I do think this lull in his condition will continue for a while, if he suffers some kind of fit, there may be nothing we can do. After all, Rokkenjima is a solitary island. It is not as though an ambulance could quickly jump in to save him. Normally, I would want to have him placed in a large hospital on the mainland, but... Father stated that he doesn't want his noble research interrupted. It seems he holds a grudge over the way we tried to force him out last year. Apparently, he strongly suspects that he'll be shut away in some hospital if he goes outside. It would be interesting to see Eva and Hideyoshi interact with nobody else around, wouldn't it? And that's how things are now. Has Dr. Nanjo been examining him? Father trusts Dr. Nanjo. It seems he can be examined when he's in one of his better moods. I can examine his condition, but if I try to recommend medicine or hospitalization, he refuses to listen. He refuses to listen to medicine? I've really only been able to look. It's true some people hate doctors. Still, what a hassle. Nanjo sighed deeply. The purpose of an examination is to determine what medical treatment would be appropriate. Receiving an examination and then not following the advice given makes the whole thing pointless. Medicine, low risk, low reward. Weak shit. Get it out of here. That's not medicine. That's not the demon's roulette. So, to sum it up, he's still expected to live 3 months. There's no way to guess how long he'll continue to live while still on the verge of death. Rudolph-san, couldn't you be a little more discreet with your words? Sorry. I've always talked this way. Give me a break. I understand how Dr. Nanjo sees it. What about you, Krasny-san? To be perfectly honest, I have to disagree with Dr. Nanjo. I find it truly difficult to think of Father as a person so sick that he only has 3 months to live. His yell is as healthy as ever, and I still get chills at the thought of his fists raining down on me. Pushing the care of your father solely on the shoulders of the eldest sibling is far from fair. In the next world, get born after me. Okay, let's get back on track. He's like, I don't know, be not the oldest next time, idiot. Skill issue. So in the opinion of our impartial and neutral doctor, it wouldn't be odd for him to go at any time. No offense to you, Aniki, but I'd rather trust the opinion of an expert in his field. Which means it's definitely not too early to start talking about Dad's assets. Father's personal funds probably reach as high as several 10 billion yen, right? But it's not as though that's all neatly gathered as ready cash. It's not as simple as simply cutting a birthday cake with a knife. That's an interesting way to put it. That's right, you sometimes get strawberries or chocolate on top of the cake, making it hard to cleanly cut it into equal parts. Given that, don't you think it's important to discuss beforehand how best to stick the knife in? Oh, fun choice of words. I cannot understand how you can all openly discuss this as though the family head is dead, even though he's still alive. She's like, you motherfuckers. Come now, don't you see how important this is? After all, when the time comes, the inheritance of his fortune must be carried out immediately, right? Moreover, the glorious Oshiramiya's house's wealth is vast. Don't you understand that careful discussion is necessary beforehand? There's a huge difference between this family's resources and your family's wealth. She's like, oh, I don't think you get it. We have no more money than you do. How rude! My birth family has nothing to do with this. Natsui responded indignantly, though in a low voice, and the already dark atmosphere grew even more hostile. Give it a rest, Ava. Natsui-san, forgive us. Pardon her rudeness. Hideyoshi's like, oh no, it's happening again. He does refuse to talk about anything but wizard shit. It does feel a little reasonable, it's true. Hideyoshi tried to smooth things over by glancing at both with a forced smile, but it only resulted in making the hostility between Ava and Natsui even more intense. It seems I'll just get in the way if I stay any longer. Please excuse me. I'm gonna get the fuck out of this room. Nanjo rose from his seat and exited the parlor. To an outsider, it might have seemed like a normal act of courtesy, but his back was watched by several glances envious of his ability to escape. After the doctor had exited and his footsteps had disappeared into the distance, Kraus recrossed his legs. In other words, this is what you would all like to say. Father's remaining life is short. You want to quickly enter into a practical conference concerning the distribution of the inheritance. Why are you so eager, I wonder? Certainly, as you say, estimating and distributing the Ushiramiya family's wealth is no simple task. In that case, shouldn't we make careful and deliberate calculations? It seems to me that you are all impatient to split up the cake tonight. Isn't that true, Rosa? What reason is there to be hasty? Yo, Rosa? Excuse me? Out of everyone who just spoke, you're gonna be like, isn't that right, Rosa? You fuck. We aren't being hasty. However, we need to have an agreement between the siblings. It doesn't matter when we do that. But if the day father's condition worsens is approaching, discussing the matter beforehand hardly seems hasty to me. Yeah, she's the youngest. She's 50 Cent voice. What do you say fuck me for? Truly. Rosa shot a glance at Ava and Rudolph. As the youngest sibling in the family, it was hard for her to be cross-examined by the eldest. Oh? Is that your true opinion? I didn't expect the most honest and pure-hearted of the siblings would say something like that. I wonder if those two told you to say it. Quit it, Aniki. Rosa's one of Dad's kids, too. She's got as much right to his inheritance as the rest of us. It's only natural that she'd be interested. After all, Dad'll definitely die. That's not something that'll happen in the distant future. On the contrary, Aniki, you're way too relaxed. It almost seems like you'd like nothing better than to turn the discussion away from the inheritance issue. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to accuse my husband of something? Calm down, Natsui-san. Listen to what we have to say. Nissan, I heard times have been extremely good lately. Yeah, since last year we've been in an unprecedented boom, and the yen keeps on rising. It seems that it's no longer a dream that the dollar will reach 100 yen. Also, the ruling party says that it'll establish health resource maintenance law by next year. At this moment, resort development companies across Japan are running about, trying to gather up as much funding as they can. You certainly seem to know a lot about it. Japan is about to experience an unprecedented boom. It'll be a repeat of the Korean War demands, this time during which Father revived the Ushiramiya family. The people of Japan have been working like mad, achieving vast economic growth and becoming the most well-off people in the world, reaching the height of our prosperity. We've reached an era where private spending is vast, which means easy money for institutions that can capitalize on that fact. The important thing is that the good economic times Japan is having in the current decade of the 1980s will never end. So true! The three kinds of electrical appliances no longer represent the people's needs. The people need ski resorts, golf courses, public pools, resort hotels, and theme parks. No. Have you gone to Disneyland, which opened just a few years ago? Come on. Come on, Disneyland. What an excellent theme park. It's a place where even an adult can be a kid and have fun with his family. No longer do we count our sole virtue to be selfless devotion while failing to care for our families. We have become the most prosperous people in the world, and now we can finally enjoy the benefits. Kraus-san, your foresight's nothing to sneeze at. When I heard that sort of thing several years ago, I thought it was crazy. But when I heard about the G5 Nations Plaza Accord, that all changed. The yen shot up, and I'll bet the price of land skyrockets soon too. It won't be long before Japan becomes the economic center of the world. It's really funny to... Yeah, you know how in 2023 everybody's always talking about how Japan's the economic center of the world? You've got a great sense of the direction the world's moving, Kraus-san. At least there can be no debate about that. I feel the same as Hideyoshi-san. Aniki, you can read into the next decade of history. I'll bet you got that keen sense from Dad, and it's incredible. However, unlike Dad, the timing of your predictions has been a bit off sometimes, right? Nissan, you've been starting resort projects everywhere, convinced that Japan will soon see a boom, but almost all of them continue to fail. While I'm sure the era you predicted will soon arrive, it seems you misread the timing of that boom. You were too early. You then panicked and tried to sell everything off, which only opened the wound even further. If your nose was really so reliable, then there should be no reason for you to sell off your property. Is this proof that you mistrust your own ability? How rude! Are you trying to insult my husband? Yes! Natsui, I really want to be one of your strongest soldiers, but, Natsui's forehead creased as she rose from the sofa. Ava, paying this no heed, stared at Kraus with a confident smile. Kraus, who also maintained his confident appearance, told Natsui to sit down. Please stop, Natsui. Ava's always been incapable of talking any other way. Calm down a little, or your headache will get worse. Watching this, the energy of Sadako eating yogurt. So true. There's proof of your lack of talent right next to us. After all, Nissan, weren't you all excited about turning this island into a resort? You built a wonderful resort hotel and beautifully maintained the garden. I'm just an amateur and don't pretend to understand, but you must have used a significant amount of money for that, right? And what is that to you? My husband's business is none of yours. Actually, that's not true, Natsui-san. Rokkenjima doesn't belong to Aniki. It belongs to Dad. Of course, the hotel does belong to Aniki, right? In fact, we'd be more than willing to pay lodging fees for tonight. Oh my god, get his ass! Like, I know your guest house is a failed hotel, you dumbass. Oh, that's so fucking funny. What do you think, Rosa? Well, if what I have on hand will suffice. Oh my god! If I can make it into a resort, this island's financial worth will rise. It is true that expenses have piled up, but we can expect a large harvest in the future. When that happens, all of you stand to profit as well, do you not? I understand that. If the value of this island rises, that'll increase our portions when we distribute the inheritance. Of course, I won't ask you to divide the island and the mansion into 4 equal parts. We can just resolve the matter with money equal to the value of the property. If you understand that much, what about my business makes you so dissatisfied? We aren't dissatisfied, we're uneasy. In the first place, Aniki, when do you plan to open that hotel? Left this way, you won't get anything out of it except our grubby handprints, right? That's right. It's an important tool for your business, isn't it? Surely you can't keep it locked up until the moment you open it. Buildings go bad if you don't use them and air them out every once in a while. Even so, it's a bit extravagant for a guest house that we only use once a year. Right, Rosa? Poor fucking Rosa, every time! That's right. Considering how wonderful it is, I'm sure it will become quite popular once you open it. Rosa's so good at this. She's like, let me say the most neutral sentence in the universe. One sec. I got it. Oh. So the hotel you keep talking about is the guest house. It's splendid. Just as Rosa said, if you were to open it, I'm sure it would become popular. The lodging they had been guided to wasn't originally intended to serve as a guest house. It was originally constructed as a resort hotel. However, even though it was built 2 years previously, there was still absolutely no prospect of it opening. Nissan, it's just like all of your enterprises. Your attention and planning are both fabulous. Then, it always becomes unmaintainable partway through, and ends before you have a chance to earn any profit. You were brilliant when you saw that using this island only as a place to live was a waste. I think it was a pretty good plan to turn it into a resort that could use the prospect of marine sports, fishing, honeymoons, and the like to attract customers. If I were the oldest son, I'm sure I'd have strained my brain looking for a way to make a profit off this island. But 2 full years have passed since you finished building, right? After 2 years, you still haven't had the opportunity to open it. Where is the managing company you entrusted it to? Natsui, baby, sweetie, honey. Impertinence. That is not my husband's fault. There has just been some trouble with the company that my husband contracted with. No matter how you look at it, we are victims here. Yeah, Jack, you got it. You got it. And yet, the rumors we've heard about this company you hired haven't been very good at all. Let's be clear about this, dear. Did you really think we wouldn't hear about how lack of payment, embezzlement, and other issues led to the project disintegrating mid-flight? We even have evidence. I don't know what kind of evidence you think you've found, but it's all baseless. As new members in the tourism industry, it is necessary for us to lay the groundwork with various people. It is also important to investigate the trustworthiness of our partners. It's merely taken us some time to meet that goal. I'll admit that in my rashness, the hotel was completed too early. However, it's not as though we're paying maintenance costs. It's a foundation that will eventually become immensely significant. Liar. I'll bet you want to liquidate it, but can't. After all, there's no reason for anyone to buy such an extravagant hotel on an isolated, empty island without any established sightseeing routes. And anyway, what about all the loans you made for this project? Even if you aren't incurring maintenance costs, the borrowed money that you can't return just keeps growing. Sorry, Kraus-Nissan, but I've investigated the development plan for this island a bit. To be honest, I haven't heard anything good either. How does Hideyoshi manage to, be saying the same shit everyone else is saying, but come off sort of folksy and good-natured about it? I think Hideyoshi might actually be a very talented businessman. Hideyoshi-san, I can see how you might be left with that impression by looking only at the current financial situation. I can't handle Kraus, he's such a... However, this is a forward-looking investment. I have no choice but to admit that my prediction was mistaken, and that up until now, severe liabilities have been created. However, the times have finally caught up with me. He's the only one who isn't doing an evil anime scheming face while he's doing it. Yeah, that's true. I will soon regain everything that I have lost up to this point. No, actually, all of the investments that I have made until now will finally return to my possession. That's right. Just like throwing away a small fry, which then becomes a salmon, they will come back even bigger than before. I'll accept that. The resort business will probably see an unprecedented boom before long, though I don't know if it'll be enough to cover all your debt. However, Kraus-Nissan, after all your failures in the past, who exactly do you expect to provide you with funding? And this isn't some small amount we're talking about. You'll need enough funding to fill the massive hole you've dug. What are you trying to say, Hideyoshi-san? Natsui-san, please don't get angry. We looked into this too. We checked to see who might have provided Kraus-Nissan with enough financing to support his recent large-scale projects, despite his string of failures. And we discovered that no such backer exists. The iron rule of the money roulette is that you bet against the loser. Aniki, you're a fairly well-known loser in this field. It's true that prosperous times are about to come, but when we looked for people who considered that enough to overlook your string of failures, and also had enough for the investment, we found no candidates. So, the big question now is where you got that money from. Oh, oops, uh-oh. Oh. Now isn't this intriguing? And? Dear, how long do you plan to let these ridiculous remarks stand? Sit down, Natsui-san. Let's cut to the point. Aniki, you've been diverting Dad's private funds to your own businesses. There's pretty much no room for doubt. If you think we've made some kind of mistake, please feel free to explain. Rudolph, don't call it diverting funds. This is embezzlement, plain and simple. A huge crime that can be criminally prosecuted. This sort of rudeness cannot be tolerated. How can you face the successor to the Ushiramiya head family and level these absurd accusations? They aren't absurd, they're right on the mark. I'm sure he'd like to somehow make his business succeed and recover his losses, but his debt keeps getting bigger. He's just trying to cover up the failure of one gamble by making an even bigger one. It's only natural that he'd try to grab any source of funding close at hand. Let me be frank. Nissan, what you're doing is embezzlement. You're betraying Father. You know that we'll have the court settle this after it's all over, right? Do you think that kind of person has any right to call themselves the successor to the Ushiramiya head family? Of all the... You dare to claim that he has betrayed the family head? You no longer have the right to straddle the threshold of the glorious Ushiramiya family. Leave this place at once. Now! Get out! Oh. Yeah, that'll... Yeah, oh, Natsui. Oh, sweetie. Natsui, who had already reached the limits of her anger, shouted at Ava in a rage. She then pointed alternately at Ava and the hallway, demanding that she leave. Ava took out a folding fan and fanned herself with it, glaring maliciously at Natsui, as though silently daring her to repeat what she'd said. However, her mouth was still smiling, curved in the shape of a crescent moon. In that unpleasant silence, Rosa gulped. God, Rosa's like, oh no, 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 no. Hey, Natsui-ne-san? To whom do you think you are speaking in such a tone? I'm speaking to the exceedingly rude sister of my husband. As the person in charge of this main family's kitchen, I cannot overlook any more of this. In charge of the kitchen. Be silent, lowly maidservant. Oh. So... meet Eva for the third time. Yeah. It's a good CG, though. She do look like that. Oh. Ava folded the fan with a snap and rose to her feet energetically. Compared to the elegance and playfulness she'd shown until a second ago, she was now unimaginably aggressive. How foolish. You stand down before Ava of the Ushiramiya family. You tell me to stand down? Me, Ushiramiya Ava, the third ranked in the Ushiramiya family hierarchy, and the one allowed to sit at the left shoulder of the head? Know your place, and then look at your shabby self in the mirror. Where is the symbol of the wing on your clothes? Where are you permitted to wear the one-winged eagle? Aren't you nothing more than a borrowed womb to house the next successor to the Ushiramiya family? Understand your place, you common housemaid. Joey, thank you for the 2 gift subs. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Sexism moment. Ava can use sexism too. Yeah. Ava's face twisted hideously as her words gouged into Natsui's heart like talons, wrenching at it. Joey, man, thank you so much. The 12 gift subs tonight, thank you so much, man. I really, really, really appreciate it. There were 100 ways Natsui wanted to respond. However, her anger and sorrow crushed her throat, and none of those words managed to make it to her mouth. Her anger had nowhere to go, and became a single hot tear that slowly dripped down. What's wrong? If you have something to say, please do so. Come on. Oh, that Ava face. Ava faced her with a provocative gaze. However, Natsui could do nothing but tremble, her clenched fists quivering. Kraus quietly broke that powder keg tension. Oh yeah, Danganronpa fans, you're gonna like what you get here. Danganronpa owes all its fucking lunch money to Umineko. Natsui, leave your seat. You should go cool your head. God. You think somebody's gonna do a murder here on this island? Do you think some murders might happen on this fucking island? I'm just wondering if you think that. What? Natsui, resenting the fact that her husband had not come to her aid, shifted the focus of her attack. Dear, don't you understand what they're saying about you? These people are baselessly calling you a traitor to father. They are making light of the fact that we protect the glory of the Ushiramiya family, even though we are constantly expending every effort to earn that glory from father. They trample all of that underfoot with their hateful rambling. And you don't even try to fight back. Why? I'm only standing up for us because you won't, but you've been pushing the entire burden on me for some time now. And now you tell me to go cool my head? It's always me. Ooh. Oh. I'm so glad she got to at least express herself. She doesn't even know, does she? She can't know that he's embezzling. How could she react like this if she knew? Even though I have always considered this family's affairs so seriously, you've... Natsui was already unable to hide her tears. She flew from the room in that state. After that, all that remained was a somewhat embarrassed mood about the parlor. So, Natsui should treat Shannon and Kanon better. Certainly. But you know, we're starting to see a little bit of, maybe why she acts the way that she does. When the sound of footsteps grew distant and silence returned, Kraus shrugged his shoulders slightly. I apologize for my wife. She has always been bad at controlling her emotions. It's even been rough for me. If that's what's been managing your household, you must suffer to no end, Nissan. Madam, it's nothing. Leave me be. Natsui flew into her room and threw herself onto her bed, lamenting. Those heart-wrenching sobs reached Kumasawa in the hallway. Poor Madame Natsui. There is a deep enmity between her and Eva-sama. Explaining their relationship would be very trying for me as a woman. The Ushiramiya family holds blood in high regard, but if a woman marries and leaves the family, they are normally removed from the family register. Thus, under normal circumstances, Eva-sama should have been removed when she married Hideyoshi-sama. However, there is no one deserving of blame in this matter. The madam certainly bears no guilt. There is nothing to call it other than a whim of God. Kraus-sama and Natsui-sama were not blessed with children for some time. After all, this is the male-dominant Ushiramiya family. A wife is merely a tool to create an heir. If such a wife cannot fulfill her only duty, she will not even be treated as a human. It pains me to remember how Master tortured Madam during that time. Back then, a wedding between Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama was being discussed. Eva-sama was sly. Taking advantage of Madame's inability to become pregnant, she gained the favor of the master. She inspired him to allow her to marry and give birth to a successor herself, making sure to avoid transferring her name out of the Ushiromiya register. There was a vast difference in the Ushiromiya hierarchy between Madame, who married into the Ushiromiya family and was treated like an outsider, and Eva-sama, who was related to the family by blood and whose husband took on the Ushiromiya name. Furthermore, Eva-sama actually gave birth first, and to a boy. As for how much weaker Madame's position was than Eva-sama's, well, I believe you could see for yourself. I'm sure Madame is tormented by the thought that, if only she had gotten pregnant earlier, the master wouldn't have accepted Eva-sama's request to keep her last name after marriage. And Eva-sama wouldn't have been permitted to act as arrogantly as she did today. However, that was not Madame's fault. All of the blame lies with God's whims and the stork that delivered Jessica late. Or, Kinzo. Or, Kinzo for literally everything, but... Even so, Madame won't allow herself to see things this way. She probably can't help but cry bitter tears as a woman, at her inability to carry out the duties expected of a wife. Ah, how sad. I cannot do anything except watch over her from the shadows. Kumasawa keeps Shakespearean looking at us and talking. Also, it's 1:30. Kumasawa is like whole-ass ancient Greek chorus as a whole single person. Genuinely, that is her, function in the story at this point. She's genuinely doing that. Because that scene's a bummer to end on, and the next scene is cool, I will do it, but I'm not going to do the full chapter. It'll probably be like 15 more minutes. We crossed the hall again on our way to the entrance. As we did, we once again spotted that witch's portrait. However, spotted is probably not the best word to describe that experience. It was more like our eyes were inexorably drawn to it. That woman's eyes, with their sage-like glamour, definitely had the power to make those who viewed it stand rooted to the spot. So this is the witch, Beatrice. Wonder if that story's true. Sam de Capsule, so true. Battler doesn't believe? Back when he had asked what this picture was, the first person to tell him had been Maria. Therefore, when Battler showed signs of doubt, Maria must have felt that Battler didn't have faith in her. Of course, that wasn't what Battler meant. Maria ran up to the portrait and began banging on a plate hanging below it. Maybe the title of the portrait was written there. Maria, trying to prove that she wasn't lying, obstinately continued to hit the plate. Sorry about that. It's not like I doubt anything you said, Maria. Ooh, Battler believes. Ooh. When he patted Maria's head and apologized, she seemed to accept it, sticking out her chest and proudly oohing. Maria and her sister Lugia, so true. Oh, thank you for the posture check and the hydrate band. What's this? My beloved witch Beatrice. Behold the sweet fish river. What's with this weird, huge epitaph? The plate did have the title of portrait written on it. The plate did have the title of the portrait written on it, but it was much too big to contain only that. Beneath the title was what appeared to be a long epitaph. If you just skimmed over it, several unnerving words would jump out at you. Incredible, isn't it? Grandfather had that made. Pretty deep, huh? Ugh. I know. It's the place where the gold's hidden. Wait. Is that story about the Ushiromiya family's hidden gold? Now there's another thing I remember from long ago. Hold on. Aniki, is this for real? Grandfather had this made, but he never said anything about this picture or the epitaph. Even so, amongst the family, it's often whispered that it indicates the location of Grandfather's hidden gold, and that he will relinquish the inheritance and the gold to the person who solves the riddle. Okay, Kinzo sucks and is an awful piece of shit human, but he did put the riddle of the One Piece on his wall, and that's cool. Ooh, I heard that too. Lots and lots of gold. Well, something like that. Something like 10 metric tons of gold bars. I think it's fake, though. Still, when you read about it in an epitaph like this, it almost seems real. I think I already explained Grandfather's upbringing, but let me also mention the Ushiro family's Legend of the Gold. Grandfather succeeded the Ushiromiya family after it was destroyed in the Great Kanto earthquake, and by successfully riding the stormy seas after the war, he managed to accumulate great wealth. That much of the story everyone knows. However, this is where the strange part begins. Part of it involves Grandfather's black magic obsession, so its credibility is extremely low, but... well, wait until the end before you doubt or make fun of it. After the war, Grandfather correctly predicted what the future would hold and won in a huge gamble, accumulating a vast store of wealth. But there's a mysterious legend about how he gained his initial funding. Grandfather came from a branch family and had no connections in the business world or the financial world. Even though he later built connections with the occupying forces, he supposedly started as a nameless person who hadn't yet gained anyone's trust. It takes trust to gather money. There's no way anyone would lend money to someone who they didn't trust. Hey, that's what we just talked about with Kraus. How did Grandfather, who had no reputation at all, manage to obtain his first vast chunk of funds? When asked that question, Grandfather supposedly answered like this. On a certain day, I encountered the Golden Witch Beatrice. Grandfather then went on and on about his continuing research into alchemy and techniques for summoning demons in order to become a great magician. And the entity summoned as the result of the demon calling ceremony was the Golden Witch Beatrice. So, a pog or a demon, or both, who knows? He then apparently made a contract by which he would receive fortune and honor in exchange for his own soul. The witch then granted Grandfather 10 tons of gold. Grandfather used this gold as collateral to prepare a vast quantity of funds, which he then used to multiply his wealth many times over and revive the Ushiromiya family. Did she inherit Messiahdine? It seems this story's so old that even our parents were told it when they were still children. So, back when our parents were young, they explored this island in all sorts of ways, believing that the gold Grandfather had received from the witch might be hidden somewhere. However, since there was the danger of them getting lost in the abandoned forest, Grandfather began to spread the story that the witch lived alone in the forest and approaching it was forbidden. I remember that old story. When we were little, we also went all over the island searching for treasure after our parents told us about it. Didn't we get lost in the forest once and then start crying until some of the servants found us? Our parents got so mad. Dang, that takes me back. We sure were idiots, weren't we? After all, Grandfather only bought this island after using those funds to get rich, right? That means he must have had the gold before coming here. There's no way the gold is on this island. That's not necessarily so. Maybe the gold was hidden on the island from the beginning, and he bought the whole island just to ensure that it'd be his and his alone. There was a whole 10 metric tons of it, right? It seems more realistic that he'd try to secure the place where it was hidden, rather than try to move it all. That is a lot of gold. It's 10 tons. That's very heavy. This epitaph was made 2 years ago, and since Grandfather wrote it himself, yeah, it does make the legend of the gold seem more believable. The so-called witch's gold that revived the Ushiromiya family weighed 10 tons. Maybe that's sleeping somewhere, ready to be turned over to whoever can solve Grandfather's riddle. Maybe that's why he did it. I guess that sounds like Grandfather's style or something. If it's true, that's pretty incredible. The epitaph carved into the plate was very mysterious, with something like a poem or a song written on it. That text was incredibly disturbing, filled with the signs of grandfather's black magic hobby, and its contents were in truly bad taste. But it could definitely be viewed as a puzzle, which, if solved, might lead to the hidden gold. Whether that's what he intended or not, I can't imagine what his true motive might have been. All we know for sure is that grandfather put the shady epitaph here so that everyone in the family could see it. We also know that he's hinted at the existence of the gold without ever talking about where it might be hidden, at least so far. These facts that then were embellished by the imaginations of our parents, who were convinced that grandfather was challenging us to a battle of wits. Sounds just like my dad, so greedy that he'd take something like this so seriously. You may laugh at grandfather's black magic obsession, but he'd still believe this story about the hidden gold. It just sounds so good. Well, it's certainly not a realistic story. At that time, when grandfather was still nameless and had no connections, there was no way anyone would just lend him a massive quantity of gold bars for free. If such a person actually did exist, it's not unthinkable that grandfather would call such a sponsor a witch. Yeah, but it's 10 tons. 10 tons! If you cash that in, how much would it come to? I mean, it'd have to be a ridiculous amount, right? It certainly would be a ridiculous amount. They say that the total amount of gold mined by humankind since the dawn of history is around 100,000 metric tons at most. That 1/10,000th of all the gold humankind has obtained throughout history should belong to just one person is just insane. It is! It really is, George, especially when you word it like that. On top of that, this witch supposedly had all this gold collected in one place and was able to lend it to grandfather just like that. We're not talking about any ordinary person. Well, to me, that 10 tons number seems pretty fishy. After all, no one's actually seen it except grandfather, right? Even if we assume that some generous witch existed and lent him some gold, maybe it was closer to 10 kilograms than 10 tons. Even 10 kilograms would be a pretty incredible sum, right? Ooh. 10 kilograms of gold is how much? Maria, who wasn't following the story and felt like she was being spoken to in riddles, finally found a place where she could ask us a question. It was a question I also wanted answered right then. Whether it was 10 kilograms or 10 tons, it still felt like a huge amount, but I had no idea exactly how huge. George Umineko folded his arms and tried to remember the market price of gold. Well, even the value of gold is affected by the market, and the value of physical gold can change depending on its purity and the trustworthiness of the foundry. You'd also need to pay handling fees to cash it in. However, that doesn't change the fact that it's a precious metal, and some people estimate that humanity will mine all the world's gold within half a century if gold mining continues at its current rate. Just guessing haphazardly, I think you could expect a price of about 2 million yen per kilogram. Whoa! Just now, I randomly said 10 kilograms since it sounded smaller, but even that would be worth 20 million yen, wouldn't it? I weigh 28 kilograms. Good job, Maria. Love you. You're perfect. Which means that if we had Maria-chan's weight in gold, we could estimate its worth at being over 50 million yen. That's just unbelievable. How much would 10 tons be then? 10 kilograms is 20 million yen, which you multiply by 1,000, so, huh? 20 billion yen? What the hell? How much is 20 billion yen actually worth? We can only measure it relative to our own pocketbooks. Anyway, let's say that a person's wages over a lifetime are about 200 million yen. You grow up and work like crazy, sacrificing your life for your company, and then you're finally freed as you approach old age. everything, including retirement money, might add up to about 200 million yen. In other words, that's the amount of money that'll be made throughout a human's life. No, you could even call it the value of a life. So 100 times that sum is an unbelievable amount of money. If you work from age 20 to age 60, that's 40 years of work. So it's equal to 4,000 years of work wages. God, putting it in those terms is actually so chilling. If you worked every day starting from the Jomon period, you'd only reach that number about now. Ugh. Is 20 billion yen a lot? Heck yeah, it's a lot. Maria, you love shortcake, right? You could buy more shortcake than you could possibly eat for the rest of your life. However, while that might be possible with 20 billion yen in cash, I don't think it would be very realistic to have that much in gold bars all in one place. Just as I said, gold is extremely heavy, so it isn't exactly convenient as a method of storing wealth. Sure, you could imagine someone gathering their fortune together as an incredibly high-value stocks or precious gems. You often hear of people who traded their wealth for precious gems so that they could carry it around with them during the chaotic times of the war. But you don't usually hear stories of people exchanging their wealth for gold. It may be heavy, but it's the most trusted and stable form of wealth internationally, so maybe that was important? For example, bonds are just scraps of paper if the whole country goes under. You can also look at it that way, but even one 10-kilogram ingot is pretty heavy to carry around. Haven't you heard? A 50-kilogram person can't carry a 50-kilogram bag over their shoulder. With that many gold bars, the amount of labor and risk for one person would be hard to calculate. So, what you're saying is, while it'd be one thing if you had a stack of banknotes worth 20 billion yen, 20 billion yen in gold would be such a big mountain that practically it'd be kind of pointless. That's right. Although the legend of the gold does have a pretty interesting ring to it. Just the part about the 10 tons of gold makes it pretty much impossible. If you think about it logically like that, it sounds obviously fake. Kinda brings you back down to reality. Anyway, that's grandfather for you. Maybe he exaggerated the story of how some kind, wealthy person gave him a loan by saying he got 10 tons of gold from a witch. Even the number 10 tons feels pretty symbolic. You mean like his gratitude for the money he borrowed was worth 10 tons of gold or something? Maybe some rich man's leisured wife generously granted it to grandfather. And maybe he started calling this person a witch. I see. Jessica's example isn't bad. Someone who generously lent a huge sum of money to grandfather while he still had no reputation might as well be called a witch. Furthermore, grandfather actually did use that money to build a vast amount of wealth later on. The fact that this person was so great at judging people might also justify calling her a witch. Also, since she went to the trouble of lending all that money, she must have enthusiastically overseen how it was spent. The decision to unexpectedly get involved with the occupying forces and profit from the Korean War demands must have been inspired by the witch herself. That might explain why he'd claimed to receive both wealth and honor from her. I see. So in other words, this witch lent grandfather the funds necessary to revive the Ushiramiya family, and he owed her big time. And then he felt so grateful that he had this whole huge painting drawn and displayed. Yeah, it's not that crazy a story. It's even possible this person was an old granny who looked like a witch. Maybe grandfather idolized her, and that's why he had her drawn to look so beautiful. I bet if we ever did meet this person, she wouldn't be nearly this pretty. That's possible. The name Beatrice sounds pretty Western, and if you think about how everyone in our family has Western names, maybe even the name Beatrice is a result of grandfather trying to rearrange some Japanese person's name to make it sound Western. I get it. That means this pretty girl doesn't exist outside the picture. Guess that means I won't be able to— oh god. Okay, thanks Battler. In the first place, isn't having a witch pretty bizarre by itself? Like, You could find something like that anywhere on Earth. I laughed and made fun of the witch, trying to distinguish myself from the kid I was 6 years ago, who feared the witch of the forest, when Maria tugged on my sleeve. I could tell by how hard she pulled that she was a bit upset. What is it, Maria? Ugh. Beatrice exists. Maria stared up at me. She had on her usual sour look, but I could tell she was angry by the color of her eyes. Witches exist. Witches exist. Ugh. Well, sure, they do exist if you turn on the TV and watch anime or something. Exist! Witches exist! Ugh. I started getting impatient, not knowing why Maria was jumping on me like this. Then Jessica tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Dumbass, you're smashing a kid's dream." I love you, Jessica. Ushira Mia Jessica. She's the best. What a pan. Look at this screen cap. Perfect. This is a thumbnail right here. Dumbass, you're smashing a kid's dream. Maria really believes things like witches and Beatrice exist. Come to think of it, Maria-chan, in social studies at your school, when you were asked to write what you wanted to be when you grew up, you wrote a witch, didn't you? Oh, that's interesting. Maria nodded seriously. Tears started to run from the corner of her eyes. I see. To a girl who wants to become a witch in the future. The existence of Beatrice was proof that witches do exist in this world, and was therefore an image that she yearned after and admired. Exist. Exist. Witches exist. But Battler still doesn't believe. Ugh. It's okay. Witches do exist. I believe it. George Aniki kneeled down and hugged Maria's head. Watching this, Jessica poked my side. So that's what it is. It's like shouting that Santa Claus doesn't exist in front of a child who believes in him on Christmas Eve. Yeah, Battler, it's October. I'm not the kind of guy who likes to shatter kids' dreams. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to make fun of your dreams, so I apologize. Beatrice does exist. Even now, she's living in the forest and comes to the mansion every night to peek in and see what everyone's doing. So you shouldn't go into the forest. At night, you mustn't stare into the dark forest. You might be seen by the witch of the forest, Beatrice. Balor's pretty good at this. Balor really is out-dripping everyone so hard in that lineup, you're right, actually. After all, grandmother said so. Ooh. Really? Battler really believes? Yep, I believe. Sorry for doubting it. Come on, let's make up. I stuck up my hand, Maria grabbed it with her tiny hand, and we made up. Maria didn't grumble anymore after that, so George, Aniki, and Jessica were relieved.